I need to welcome first Ibrahim. He's the staff product manager in machine learning and AI in HelloFresh. Hello, Ibrahim. And we have Silvanus, where he is the CEO and the founder of UXCam. And I think he's coming with a lot of knowledge on the AI in his company. So we have two people coming from a very different organizations, style and ways of working. I'm coming also from Delivery Hero, and I've been having Substack working, talking about AI. So we have different angles in this fire chat. But in order to make it a real talk, we need to hear from you first. What are the questions you have in mind? What do you expect from this title? So we will not talk about anything until you ask questions.
This is the other way around. So we are building products, right? And my imagination, at least from the title, was more on the lines of, okay, we have few products which has no clue about AI. Now, if we have to integrate the AI, look taking the buzz into consideration, how are you guys doing it, and how can we, as product managers, implement those tactics into the AI? That was my overall thing.
Perfect question. I think we are facing a lot like that, right? What else? We'll take two questions and then we'll start the chat. What else in your mind? From moving from getting productivity from AI to an organizational change. Yeah, we have one more at the end.
Down there, yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be curious to hear about a bit of governance. So, for instance, like we are still, chasing the best thing and one that we will just stick. So right now it's Gemini, who is offering GDPR compliance, and like how do you scale, for instance, Delivery Hero, HelloFresh? For me, you're all enterprise, and it's a lot of decision making, a lot of policy checking. Like how do you like move the jurors in your organization to move ASAP? I heard that you have a, let's say, unofficial motto that right now that engineering has to deliver 30-50% more with all the AI tools, and you're pushing from tech and product side. And looks like in order to really move forward, you have to facilitate this governance thing, and you as a product have to impact this. Then you have to actually a bit push, engineers, because Google or wherever is the bank they inspire us. Okay, 20% of code we are using AI, but what does it mean, like 20% of code? And it's really how you are moving such thing from your big scale organization, because for small companies it would be interesting to learn how you're doing this. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, maybe I start with Ibrahim first. On the first question related to your current organization, which is not small, and at the same time you have products already up and running, and how you bring AI to it.
Yeah, I think if your decision is how I should integrate AI in my existing product, I would actually question that decision, and I would say, think about if you want to build that product from scratch today, how are you going to build that? So unfortunately, especially in the last 2 years, we saw a lot of approach toward AI that were mainly focused on the incrementalism. Like, yeah, I can optimize a little bit user experience, or I can reduce the effort writing a PRD or Jira ticket using AI. But to me, the biggest probably piece of the cake and the biggest leverage in AI exists mainly on the effectiveness, which means you need to think probably from the first principle. If you are going to build that feature today, how this feature should look like from scratch. Let's imagine your product doesn't exist even. How would you build that product from scratch these days? That require a different way of thinking, because what we see with whatever technological shift that are happening, we should start questioning all of the past assumption, because with AI and with this technological transformation, we get totally a new possibility to build stuff in a different way. So if you're just thinking as like incrementalism and adding a patch on top of the existing product, I don't see you're gaining too much. Rather, you need to come back and think from the first principle and think about, if I want to build this feature from scratch today, how would that look like? That's my take on that.
Thank you. Question here, because you also deal from UX Cam perspective with a lot of organizations that can also think about AI in a different way. Do you see it differently from UX Cam perspective first and from your clients?
Yes. So first of all, most of our clients are enterprises, and they're, like, as you said, the red tape, the time until they can adopt AI solutions or until they actually start using AI internally, it takes ages. So there's so much red tape right now. So I think within our existing client base, I think they're all struggling to actually bring AI to fruition. And so this is one, like the internal side. In the other side, like for us, we are also focusing heavily, like basically what Stefan described earlier, and also what Ibrahim just said is like we are rethinking the way we do product actually, and we are developing a AI-powered product analytics agent. So we had it. We exactly did this transition. Like all our product teams, we switched over now to building actually AI solutions, and we have had a lot of learnings there because it's very different from. In a way, it's very different from building traditional products, but in the other way, it's very similar. So we've made a few mistakes where we went too wide, where we did not actually say precisely this is what this agent is going to do. And we said, okay, there's this promise of AI. It's there. It can solve all types of very complex questions, but we realized that it's really hard to build something that's not exactly fine-tuned. So we had an exploration phase where we basically built agents that could do everything. We gave it to beta clients. Some were really excited about it. Some started to probe deeper, and we realized there's a lot of issues. So now we went back to much more like we had this exploration phase, and now we're going back to much more fine-grained phase where we say this is like, yes, AI is extremely powerful and will be more and more powerful in the future, but what is exactly the value that we can and want to ship now, and how do we do it, right? And this whole transition of building AI products, QAing AI products, I think this is something that we have to learn as companies, as teams. And I think this is not something just because we have great AI agents that do coding for you, that do prototyping. I think the fundamental challenge is we need to all, as organizations and as individuals, learn how to work with them, actually, right? And I think this is something that just takes much longer. There's a massive hype. Yeah, there's going to be a big productivity boost. I think it's going to come, but it's going to take some time until we understand better how do we build these products with AI and how do we build AI products, right? And I think it's hard. We don't have all the answers, right? But and it's a very interesting transition. And I think in enterprises, we need to unlock, from all I've seen, I haven't worked in enterprise. Our company is 70 people, so we have a lot of different different challenges, but we don't have this challenge of red tape, right? And I think somehow in enterprises, in order to actually unlock this, you need to kind of free the teams to drive this themselves, right? And I think that's from a lot of the discussions that I've seen so far, is like this is one of the major challenges that we have in enterprises as well.
Yeah, makes sense. And before we go to the second question, do you think like what we have now from productivity from AI, faster documentation, creating support chats, chatbots, and so on, this is usually what we hear about, right? And this is, for me, it looks like the opening dance of what will come next, right?
Exactly, I agree, and I think it's asked for as the teams. Like we will completely change the way that we're working. Actually, as you said, like right now we have product managers that build prototypes. We have engineers that ship also, like kind of the roles. They get much more washed up, right? Like or not much less sharp in a way, right? And the way the teams start to collaborate, I think that's something that we really have to rethink in the future, right? And I think this is like we have to all individually, we have to accept that. It's like, okay, I used to be a designer, I used to be a PM, an engineer, and now other people start doing what I'm doing, right? But I think it's an opportunity because you can do also many more things as an engineer. You can ship prototypes, you can get feedback from the internal teams, right? And you can, like, I think creating this collaborative space where everyone accepts that the others can do similar things, right? But we work as a team. And I think this is key, actually. And I think this is something that we like need to. We haven't been driving this consciously in our organization, but this is happening, and we're also thinking organizationally, how can we enable this better, right? Especially in the remote teams, it's quite challenging. I think it's much easier if you're together actually, and you really have this quick iterations. You have design, product, engineering together driving this. I think that's also, I discussed this yesterday with Ebrahim. It's also like something that they've been pushing, and I think it's an amazing opportunities that are opening up, but we have to learn, and it's not something that comes overnight. And
Thank you, Ibrahim. think you have a different say here.
Yeah, I do believe actually the small team are the winner of this game. Because the big org and big corporation, how fast are they in the change and making changes? So like I can tell my own story here, but I totally agree with the fact that like we require new way of working, but we already have seen some of the friction. So in HelloFresh we have about 100 product teams, more than 100 product managers. If you consider our leadership, probably 150, 130. I think this year we have started experimenting, okay, how an AI native product development life cycle looks like. Initially, up until this year, we had an established product process. We were calling it 5D, that you start with discover, define, design, deliver, and decide. So, and then a lot of our artifact and playbook were just inherited from Amazon, a working backward document, PR and FAQ. You heard probably about those practices. So beginning of the year, when I got the mission that, okay, write a vision on how an AI native product development lifecycle looks like, I was just crowdsourcing ideas from all of our product community, from our product leadership that, hey, yeah, how about we use AI to just write a PRD for us? How about we use AI to just write that for customer question or PR RFQ for us? So basically, how we can integrate AI within our 5D process. That was the whole sentiment. So I went offline. I started thinking about, okay, how I was operating myself in the last 2 years. And I had a couple of limitations in my team. I didn't have design. I didn't have analytic. So I was in the last 2 years were the one that were, of course, having an engineering background helped me in some senses, but I didn't have a design background. But using AI, I was prototyping the tools that I wanted. I was doing the data analysis that I wanted. So I think that pushed me toward thinking, okay, like how other product teams should work in this way. And I wrote a paper that initially has been considered very controversial and bold, that the title was, we should kill the 5D process. And we should go from a written first culture to a builder first culture. And the reason for that was, especially for us, beginning of the COVID, with most of our team working remote, of course, it was easy like to use written first culture as a way, as a mechanism to bring everyone together, to create alignment, to asynchronously communicate to each other. But post-COVID, and especially these days, when you can go from an idea to a prototype within a couple of hours, that way of working became a competitive disadvantage for us. So that's why I wrote, okay, I'm not going to write a paper to optimize writing Jira ticket using AI or write a PRD. This is going to be very controversial, which is we need to kill this process and think about totally a new way of working. Of course, it was not easy, but everyone were actually, when I put it there, when I was talking to a product engineering and design community, everyone were excited. So yes, this is the way that we want to work. But getting it rolling, of course, was not easy. So we started experimenting with 5 pilot teams across different domains to see how this is getting, let's say, into action. So far, we had some success. We had some also challenges that still is going on. As Silvanus mentioned, this is still just an ongoing experiment. Sorry, I cannot share the result yet, but I can share a couple of learnings so far. So one of the key learning was, I think, in a small team that are totally empowered just to make a decision and basically question all of those previous way of thinking. Should I get review from my manager to ship this, or I am a designer, should I just think about the design, or all of those boundary that we created? I think these are the stuff that we see people initially have some sort of friction to get used to this way of working. So what we did, like when we were running 1 or 2 weeks experiment with this team, there were one of our principal engineer and me as a driver of the transformation and a team. Beginning of the week, we told them, okay, we're going to have a couple of rules for the game. And the rule number 1 would be, here, everyone is a builder. There will be no title. So if you're a product manager, if you can code, you can code. So let's try. And this is going to be an experiment. So just forget about your role boundary and don't attach your identity to your role. Then the second principle was, if you need to test or validate something with a customer, think about what you can bring to the room to make a decision right now. We can make that happen. And there were a couple of other principles that I don't want to basically mention, but this really helped to set the stage that everyone, like we had a session with our marketing folks that she started pulling up her cursor and was doing a QA in a session together with engineer for the first time. Or there were another aha moment that the product manager for the first time pushing a commit to a repo, and it was of course a context dummy, basically text, but he was hyped that, hey, like now I can contribute to the code, to the product actually. So I think this was very interesting observation that really helped us, like how basically setting some sort of principle at the beginning, it helping people to just get off their boundary and ultimately all work toward achieving the same outcome. This is of course let's say the success or what went well, but I can talk maybe also about what didn't go well later. Yeah.
Thank you. Maybe let me connect it to the second question. If you have a motivated team who are now very happy that they are contributing to the code, you do changes directly, but they have no clue about GDPR. How can you guarantee that, especially you work in Europe, right? You have a lot of enterprises in Europe. You need also to look into that.
Of course. So I think there's two sides to it. First, AI is an opportunity to help us because it's always a struggle, right? We try to remove as much PII as possible. We work with our clients to make sure it doesn't get recorded. We're now using AI to actually actively hide sensitive information so that this doesn't even get to the end users. So there's one opportunity. The other is, as you mentioned, it's the hosting challenges, right? Even though we have contracts with OpenAI, they say they won't look at it, they will immediately delete it. There are still big questions around GDPR, right? And I think the solution here is self-hosting and basically building really effective smaller agents where you don't need the fanciest, latest model from OpenAI, but where you can actually run your own servers, right? And then the data stays with you. And then I think then you only have the advantages that AI again can occlude, can redact the sensitive information. And this is the future. Like this is something that we are working towards now. We came from using very big models. Now we want to push like using smaller and smaller models that allows us to self-deploy. And then these issues are actually resolved.
But so you have a system in place that can guarantee this kind of mistakes.
It can't guarantee it, but we are working actively. Like we have a team that just tries to optimize, like how can we actually use AI to remove this data, right? To automatically flag up to us and the developers of our clients or PMs make sure that this gets redacted. So we are working on like how can we leverage AI for exactly GDPR compliance reasons.
That I like a lot because this is what we name it, moving from productivity to a system. Because you need to build a system that enable this productivity. It cannot be like we talk about productivity and we forget the system and we end up with a mess in the production, right?
Yeah, there is also another component that I want to add. I think beside the productivity and system, you of course need some sort of education. So what we did also at the beginning of the whole Gen AI and AI hype, we started also establishing, for example, the governance and set of principles that we are expecting or product team or whoever, engineer, designer, whoever who want to use AI should basically follow. So like this Gen AI, what we call it Gen AI guideline was basically the main decision guideline for you to decide what you should use AI for and what you shouldn't. And also include which type of data you can pass, which type of data you can pass. But of course, just going from a paper that we call it guideline, we can't get anywhere. We started also training all of our employees about like, okay, how you can put this in practice. So our LN learning and development team really helped just creating courses to train the employees a while ago. And then now with whatever is changing, actually, this this learning is an ongoing process, but it's becoming very important. So this is still ongoing, but I think education is also another component that like when you build a system, of course, you also need, if the system is still require people to work with, you need to make sure that people are educated how to use it or what to not use it for. And the other action that I also probably saw went pretty well for us was in most of the discussion that we had for choosing a tool or evaluating a vendor, we always had some security expert and some data expert in the room. So that's also helped. And there is this, like, of course, we build this a steering group that we have people from product, design, engineering, but bringing the security and data also into that steering group, it really helps us also to bring that perspective before we actually lock ourselves into a vendor to just have different way of assessing these tools. So these are also a couple of actions that we took and help ultimately to scale the governance across the company.
Okay, fair. I hope we answer two of the questions. Before I ask both of you a question, next, let me ask the group here. How, based on whoever attended Chris' presentation, we're talking about shifting from output to outcomes. How can we do that with vibe coding? Because there's an impression that outputs, actually vibe coding is outputs. You look into a solution, you don't care, I just need to build something, right? And you are very boosted of the productivity, thinking like you are now vibe coding an application and it's pure output. You don't think about the outcomes. So how can you, I need the answer from you first, think about how we can build outcomes when you have this power of AI. Any idea? No one will get out of the room before answering. Yeah. I have the mic. Yeah. Here.
Number 3, yeah.
I personally think that vibe coding takes faster to outcomes. I mean, yes, it's outputs at the end, but when you see like an outcome and it's like a long-term goal or like it's a quarterly goal and so on, I feel like AI will like remove blockers and will enable you to reach that outcome faster than what you would do when you just like do all the process of writing, documenting, pitching, and doing all those alignment meetings and so on. You just make it work. You pitch it faster, you make the others like the shareholders or the stakeholders and so on, and then you actually reach your output faster or your outcome faster. So I think it's like a better way kind of to go into the outcome.
Good perspective. Who else? How can you think about moving all this power from outputs to outcomes?
I have actually one point to say when you were talking about like vibe coding and like sending stuff out. I work in sales, and for us in sales perspective, is MVP sometimes super tricky. So when you are basically testing for you, it's like, okay, let's test this, but we as salespeople, we need to sell it. And if something is like, so I was thinking about like if something is like doing so fast and then the sales team needs to sell it and to put it like this shiny product, but maybe you in product already know this won't be a shiny product, how to tackle this in the future.
Good one.
Maybe I will talk about the caveats of vibe coding, what I see, and I vibe code myself. So I think like for me, I see it as like a brute forcing a password. Like you try to crack the code. I'm just going to throw a lot of things to my customers, and at some point, some things will stick. And I don't ask myself anymore the question of like, what do we want to achieve? So I think it's like how do you make it faster to outcomes? I think you really need to anchor the practice of vibe coding or prototyping into the overall product development, right? Just like always start like, what do you want to really achieve? And I think we should like scold people from vibe coding or prototyping without any reason or any goal, because then you're going to produce a lot of crap, a lot of fake insights. So it's going to be harder to make a decision. And also because you prototype, you need to show it to customers. You're going to burn through your customer base. And when you have actually something valuable to show to them, maybe you won't have anybody to show to, right? So I don't know how to like do it at the moment, but I think that's the questions leaders should ask themselves. I think it's very empowering. Also, if you don't have a lot of resources, if you are small teams, but I think like there's a lot of like issues that will pop up with like, it's like a bit like fast fashion as well, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm going to produce a lot of fake apps, and at some point something will stick. We're going to be happy, we're going to ship it, but is it the outcomes that you want to generate for your company or for your customers? I don't know. So I think it's like, how do you make the link from like the strategy, like what do you want to achieve as a team, right? And how do you insert then the prototyping in that part, and not like too early in the process? I think that's where we need to understand what to do. So I don't have an answer, but more like what you should.
Very good
do.
thought. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. So, as you have your product core is AI thinking, so how you avoid that your team and your company are very solution driven, because they have this power. And as Florian was saying, and also the other question is like, some people can say it like it's faster for the outcomes. Others can see it, it's a noise, and sometimes you skip the problem and you just try to figure out a solution. So how you guarantee that and make sure that your team is really looking to the outcomes?
Our company is a bit different in a way. I can't speak from experience because we are really driving a fundamental shift. We are not fundamental shift. We're not shipping many small features right now. We are moving completely to a different platform, to a different way of doing things. So we don't have a lot of, like, we have a big vision that we're working towards as a team. And I think the big opportunity, that there's big risks and opportunities of vibe coding. You really, the risks are exactly like you always chase the latest shiny thing. You ship subpar things into production and then sales suffers from it, right? But on the other side, so the way I see vibe coding, the way we are using it, it's for quick prototyping and getting quick feedback internally, right? I think this is a great opportunity that we like going from like having a rough idea to something that you think is actually good, like a decent UX that actually serves the use case. You can go much quicker as a small team, right? And you can build multiple of these smaller like fake products, but then you need to have a way of internally validating it. So this is just output, but maybe if you then say internally, okay, then let's check, ask the CS team, ask the sales team, and get feedback from clients, and then actually kind of mark as outcome, like what would they love to use it, right? Do they think they could sell it, right? So basically putting something in between. Obviously, you can't ship this into to users because you burn your base, right? But having some like small iterative design, process, prototyping process, getting feedback. And then once you decide that's what we're going to build, I think then you need to go back to a much more fundamental way of building. You cannot use vibe coding in this quick way to ship good features to production, right? This is like, at least in our, like the quality that it creates, it's not good enough. Like these first prototype have nothing to do with what goes to production in the end, right? So there's this other thing. It's like, okay, we use vibe coding to come up with something, and then we use another approach of vibe coding to completely start from scratch and then build something that we're actually going to ship and then follow the normal like product process in a way. So I think it can speed up the different cycles drastically, but you need to do it in a really conscious way. If you tell everyone just do it, I think then you're failing.
So do you agree that it's faster to outcomes?
It can be faster if it's well done. I think it's also highly risky. We've done the same, like we quickly build a few prototypes and then it just gets very noisy. It's not clear what you do with the prototypes. It's still really distracting, right? And still a lot of mental load. So I do think it is risky. It can be, I think in many cases for us, it was decreasing the time to outcomes, but it needs to be a very conscious effort to always think about the outcomes instead of outputs.
Okay. Ebrahim, do you agree, as Florian was saying, to be within a boundary in a strategy as well?
Yeah, I think like we are probably in a phase that to me speed is a table stake. Like everyone can wipe code now, right? Even my granny probably, if you just teach her English, can just wipe code a dummy application these days. So let's take a step back and even think about, before we actually go and build something fast, what is the question that we should ask ourselves? I think the most critical question that we should ask ourselves is, what's worth building even? So for me, the leverage of AI and the area, especially these days, I do agree, speed can help. But the key leverage still is answering this question, what worth building, before we actually wipe code and build it fast. So if you just consider the three simple steps of the product development, you just need to have some sort of insight, then you act on it, wipe code it, and then you need to measure. So the second step, acting it, is something that not only you, but all of your competitor and everyone out in the industry has the same speed of you, if not faster. So the key leverage exists in the first and the last part. How I can have some sort of insight that none of my competitor out there has that. How fast I can act on this insight is the next question, but figuring out what worth building is the first area, and how I can have those insights, how fast I can get those insights in the hand of my product team so that they can act on that in the next step. So that's the first step. And the last part about measurement, I think I see a lot of still bottleneck that team are shipping experiment or product feature whatsoever, and they need to wait 10, 16 weeks to just call a decision on an experiment. So that's an area that I don't see there are too much of the innovation happening, but ideally, if I'm running a retention experiment, I don't want to wait 16 weeks for the experiment to come to maturity. I want to use AI on that era, helping me to make a faster decision. It could be an AI that could plug into my experimentation, and based on the behavior of my customer data in the A/B test, it will predict what is the chance of coming to a statistical significance. Instead of me waiting 6 weeks or 10 weeks, I can make a decision faster. So what I see here is like that first part, figuring out what was building together with building it fast, and ultimately measuring and acting fast is the part that can give you 10x more impact and let's say outcome compared to just focusing on the middle part.
Got it. Okay, so you are talking about the 3 steps. Okay. Okay. Question to the group here. If you want to travel from Berlin to Rome with a car, will you buy a car or you will build it? You don't have the money to fly, so you have to select one of 2 options. You buy a car or rent a car, ready-made, scalable, with some engineers who build it, or you will build it. You rent, right? Why?
There is a knowledge that you don't have, like you have to learn it yourself, and the time for you to get to as good as they are. By the time you are there, they already like made the rocket out of the car, right?
Exactly. So it's one of the steps, you know, and also the risks. I would be very afraid to assemble a car and I will go by myself to the road. I have to be fair, right? I would be very afraid because it has a lot of risks. I don't know what will happen. Yeah. So I asked this to start something. How you handle the unknowns with AI?
You embrace them. I do think we understand much more about AI now. I think there's like, so for me or also for our leadership team, we use AI much more intensively now ourselves, because it's one thing, it's a shiny thing and I want everyone to do it, right? I'm wearing a double hat. I'm also CTO and I'm working closely with the engineering team. And because I don't just want to tell them use AI, I'm trying to understand it as much as I can to de-risk, right? So I have been doing vibe coding. I have been doing vibe prototyping. Whenever I find time at night to exactly like to understand this better and to de-risk, right? And I think there's not many, like I think it comes down to scoping. If you say, yeah, I hope in 2 years from now, then there's going to be ChatGPT 7, it's going to solve all my problems. I just build something shitty. And then I hope like the latest models will somehow miraculously figure out the right context and actually solve this problem. Like, I think then it's risky. If you know precisely, I have my use case. In our case, like you have a certain analytics use case, and I know already the AI is mature enough. We understand the cost. We know we have test cases in place, right, to actually check against it. You can really make systematic progress, and you don't have a lot of risk, right? I think there's some risks around like cost. You don't know if the big providers are gonna ramp up costs. You don't, but I think the models won't get worse, right? And I think this is something there you have to like again go back to the basics. Don't hope for a future where there's going to be AGI, because we've seen it's leveling out, right? I think now it's on us to start using the models that we have better. And then you have the same risks that you always have as product, right? But you don't have additional risks that are added by AI if you're really clear what you want to achieve with it.
Any thought on this before I move to?
So is it more like you want to debunk the unknown on product development, or this is more like, yeah, like I want to experiment this new way of working with AI, and there are a lot of unknown. Like I just want to make sure I'm double click on the area based on your question.
It's based on, is it curiosity that to build the car, or it's really you need to do that?
So I would say if you really are not a good driver and you don't have a driving license, you probably first you need to figure out what do you need to take with you to just go to the same mission, arrive to Rome. And the way to get there also, I think, just consider what's happening. If you are going to basically build a brand new product and you want to use AI as an example, I think there will be a lot of unknown and you need to learn certain level of new skills. So the first thing is you need to get comfortable with those stuff. Because at this phase, like I've been talking to a lot of consultant companies that now after agile transformation are trying to sell AI transformation. After all of this discussion, what I understood, there is no playbook as of now, which is bad probably for some people that loves framework and playbook. that you just get that playbook and it take you from a company to an AI native or AI first company. So the only way to get at there, like to be in the arena, to just experiment. And that required first just incentivizing and putting this culture out there as a company that, hey, like this might be uncomfortable. This is going to be the new way of working. We don't know if this is going to work or not, but the only way to get out of that is just experimenting with that. So I think this is definitely some sort of cultural or mindset. If it's on the product side, I would say in most of the case with AI product, try to prove the value with the simplest increment that you can beat. And that simplest increment, in most of the case, it doesn't have anything to do with AI. Build a rule-based engine that can prove the value, put it in the hand of customer, collect sample data, and then you can think about, okay, like how I can now think about making this system even more intelligent over time.
Okay, thank you. I think in UXCam, we have a luxury that the founder is also background technical. Okay, and this is very, very edge case because most of the time, either business or product, with all the respect to product, I'm one of them, right? But you guarantee a bit of not going far away from reality because you know the tech side of it, and that's it. So I will do something they don't know that what I will ask now. Okay, Ibrahim, you have 1 minute from a product person in your team. Is convincing you to vibe code on production. You are the CTO. You need to be either to tell him go out or you agree.
And what would be the prize for the winner? So okay, so I found this new opportunity, and I was looking at Reddit the other day, and I found that a lot of customers of the UXCam actually are talking about, hey, like we need to have some sort of intelligent agent from UXCam that we can integrate it into our Figma, that whenever our design team are prototyping something, it can critically judge that based on the customer evidence and insight that are coming from different sources, internally or externally. So the main persona or the main user or the segment that asks this is all of those small and medium enterprise that they don't have all of the luxury of having people to do this job for them. That's a segment. And the main problem that they are facing is basically they ship the product or they ship the prototype, and then customer research or customer insight are coming secondary, or they build the prototype and ultimately they are trying to run a UXR that require recruiting the people and bringing them in-house and running that. And the impact of this problem is basically from 10 prototype that they are building, the ratio of the prototype to production is 1 to 10. I want you to vibe code this solution for them now.
First of all, it's an amazing idea, and we're working on this right now. But I think the vibe coding is a really right term. I hate the term, to be honest, like because you can use it to vibe code for people who don't know what they're like, for product managers to build these examples, right, and then give it in the hands of clients. I think it's great in this sense, but also developers are vibe coding, right? And what you just described is something you could never vibe code if you have no idea about the technical backgrounds, right? So you would have to have, I think, form a team, right? You have a team like where you have actually the engineer together with the PM and the designer, and then you vibe code together something where the engineer says this is feasible, this is feasible, right? And the designer and the PMs, and you shape this together. What's the prototype? And then we give it to clients. Then we give it to the CS team, to the sales team to get feedback. But it won't be shipped into production, right? Coming back to the scenario, it's like, I think it's important to have an engineer at the table at the beginning, already during the vibe coding session, because they can tell you this is never going to work, right? Like this is just technically not feasible, but like shaping together this vibe coded solution, I think this is awesome to quick, like within 2-3 days, to get really quick feedback, to get a sense also using it, like how would you like it, right? What are the challenges? But then it still has to go back into the development cycle and then be shipped in a matter of weeks, right? So I think this is like, there's two approaches of vibe coding. Vibe coding also makes really good developers much faster, right? But it's different from the way vibe coding is done, like if you are not a technical person, right? But I think having these teams, technical PMs, like people who really understand in depth the use case to build like viable prototypes, I think this is a massive opportunity, right? And then the development comes later, but never push anything into production. It has been vibe coded by a non-technical person. That's not going to happen in the next 2-3 years, maybe at some point, but I think right now we're far off.
Thank you. Thank you, Ebrahim.
Seems I failed to convince him.
No, you convinced him, but with some conditions. Okay, so before we give both of them on this amazing chat a gift, I need 3 takeaways from the group. So you need to help me to give them the gift. I need 3 takeaways from the chat today.
Don't push vibe coding into production.
Good one.
2.
Use self-hosting for GDPR.
Yes.
Perfect. 3.
Hmm.
Include developers from the beginning. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you.